Oh my gosh, this is finally it. I'm finally gonna be done with 2017 after this video. I'm still talking about 2017 and it's February 2nd, but no more of that. This is the final rest in peace to 2017 for the year of film. After this video, I'm done. No more film reviews on anything 2017 related unless I deem it necessary, but I doubt it. There is one film that I would like to talk extensively on. The rest of the movies that I'm going to be catching up with you on, they're going to be very rapid fire because I really don't want to spend too much time dwelling on everything because this isn't just the time for that in this kind of video. One film, however, I do want to talk a little bit about because I just saw it last night and I'm bummed that I didn't see it last year. And that film is Phantom Thread is the latest Paul Thomas Anderson film and is also the final film for Daniel Day-Lewis, or so he claims. You know how some people are, like Steven Soderbergh says he's going into retirement, then he comes back with like 2 other films, Logan Lucky and some movie called Unsane coming out this year. Maybe Daniel Day will come back at some point, but for now he's saying that this is his final film. This also stars Leslie Manville and Vicky Krieps. It's about a 50s London fashion designer, Reynolds Woodcock, played by Daniel Day-Lewis, who is very into his art. He doesn't see himself as just another run-of-the-mill designer. He is an artist. The dresses he makes are meticulously crafted. They're perfect to him in every sense of the word. And one day he's out at a diner and he meets this woman named Alma, played by Vicky Krieps, who he thinks would be perfect to try on some dresses. They kind of start to form a relationship, but it's a little strange because this man is very particular about a lot of things in his life, and she just wants to be a part of his life. So you have this conflict going on between them. There's a romance there, but there's certain stuff getting in the way. That's all I can really say about the plot of this film, because there are certain things in this film that took me through a loop, and I loved it. This film was wonderfully written by Paul Thomas Anderson. Mainly because the movie starts off and I'm thinking like, okay, let's just see, like you're gonna go from here to here to here probably, and then as the movie keeps going, stuff keeps happening that surprises me, and I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, like that's really cool. Well, you're probably gonna do this now, but then it keeps going, and I'm like, oh, okay. And it just kept kind of surprising me throughout as far as what the narrative had to offer. And Paul Thomas Anderson, this screenplay is wonderful. Not only the writing, but he also did a fantastic job directing this film because it looks gorgeous. Each shot from the film is honestly burnt into my memory because it looks just so good, and also just the set design, like this house that they're living in. It's a very good looking scenery to set this fascinating story in with these fascinating characters. Reynolds, played by Daniel Day-Lewis, he was phenomenal. He says this is his last performance. Maybe he can come back, at least I'm hoping so, because I want to see more from him always. He is such a fantastic actor. And to see him in this film play this character that requires a lot from him, obviously. You can't just show up on set and be like, alright, let's just get this done. You have to really dedicate yourself to this kind of character. He nailed it. And he made it seem easy while he was at it. There's like one scene in the film that just the way he talked, the way he kind of talked back and forth with another character, felt so real. Like, it's so, like, wise-ass of him, but it's like, I've heard people, like, talk like that before, and he is so on fire in this film. If this is truly his last film, he went out on a bang, seriously. That can also be a great testament to what Paul Thomas Anderson wrote for the dialogue, because there are plenty of moments that felt very realistic. So it's the perfect marriage between the writer and the actors delivering these performances, like Leslie Manville, who plays Cyril, Daniel Day-Lewis's sister in the film, who knows a lot about her brother because they had to live together, so she knows his particular quirks and all that, but she's one of those characters that can actually talk back to Daniel Day-Lewis when he's being a wise ass, kind of keep him in control a little bit, and that was really great to see from her. It was a very good performance. However, Vicky Krieps, she was phenomenal in this film. Because once again, movie started off and I was thinking like, okay, you're gonna do this, this, and this, and it surprised me, and then it surprised me again, and I was like, this is wonderful. Once again, a perfect marriage between the screenwriter of the script and the actor who's supposed to deliver the dialogue that they have to offer, portray this character that once again requires a lot of dedication. Vicky Krieps was amazing. I think she was severely snubbed for the Oscars. Like, looking back, Leslie Manville deserves it, and so does Daniel Day-Lewis, but where was Vicky Krieps? She was one of the standouts of this film. Her character has such a great arc in this film, and it's an arc that you wouldn't expect. And I'm trying to be kind of vague with this review. I want to talk about this film a lot, but I want to be vague for the sake of you guys. I know a lot of people have not seen this film yet, and I want them to, because I love it. And one of the main reasons why is because of the clever screenplay that goes in many different directions that caught me off guard, yet I love. There's only really one flaw I had with this film, is that during the film, two of the same things kind of happen. The first time it happens, I was thinking like, well, that kind of feels a little out of left field. That doesn't really seem like you built it up within the character to show these kind of tendencies. The second time it happened, it was a little better as far as you already saw this character do it earlier, so it's easier to accept. But the first time, though, still kind of bugged me. However, what happened after a certain character does a thing, I still loved it. I think they should have built up to that as far as what was going on in the character's mind a little bit more. Other than that, this movie was phenomenal. It's got gorgeous direction and cinematography, great writing, a great screenplay, terrific performances, with great character arcs from Daniel Day-Lewis and Vicky Krieps, and a musical score that is completely transportive and magical. Like, when I was in the movie theater listening to the score, I was thinking like, man, this is a really good sound, but I think I've heard like my Blade Runner and Dunkirk might still be like a little better, but then as the score just kind of kept going, it just like crept in there as like one of my top 5 scores of like 2017. I'm gonna give Phantom Thread an A. This movie needs your attention. It absolutely needs it. This movie doesn't come across as pretentious Oscar bait kind of film like, hey, look at me, I'm so talented. This movie honestly does feel like Paul Thomas Anderson just came up with this great idea and he just needed to tell it. And I'm so glad he did, because this is honestly one of my new favorites of last year. I put it like right under 3 billboards on my best list. So yes, go check out Phantom Thread immediately. I don't want to talk so much about it because you just gotta see it for all the surprises that it has. Now, let's get to the films that I couldn't be bothered to make a full-length video on. Yay! Table 19. This movie was okay. A lot of people were talking about like, oh my god, it's so horrible. And I can see that. I wasn't really angry at it though, like I was watching it, and there are moments where I was just kind of like, well, that's kind of terrible and dumb, but the whole movie didn't feel that way to me, just felt really bland. Like, it has a neat idea with just really meh execution, you know? The actors are fine. The best part is June Squibb and Anna Kendrick, because I have a huge bias towards Anna Kendrick. But her and June Squibb, I guess, were the ones that I liked to watch the most. Everyone else was just kind of, too bad, you know? But not like horrible bad, just like technically bad, you know? It's like, this movie's tough. Like, I didn't really laugh, but I didn't hate myself watching it like I did Chips or Fist Fight or something like that. So, yeah, I gotta have to just stick with a C on this. I know there's some people that really hated this movie. I was just thinking, like, I've seen so much worse, especially in the comedy genre, that this just feels like nothing to me. The Devil's Candy, I watched it on Netflix because of my buddy Film Fan 0599 suggestion, and I liked it. I definitely didn't love it like he did. I think some visual effects got pretty bad near the end. The story itself feels a little bit rushed and not too well delved into at all, and I think there could have been more as far as the writing goes there. There is some really disturbing stuff in this movie, though, that I really liked. You have the killer guy. I don't know who he was, actor-wise, but he was excellent. Ethan Embry was also very good as this dad character. I think that if they spent a little bit more time, like, what else can we go with this story? Because the movie's like only like an hour and like 17 minutes, some time around there. I think it could have gone on a little longer, and I think it should have. I think it would have benefited the film more. I would recommend this, though. I'd give it a B, but if you are a little more not too into gruesome, kind of disturbing stuff, then probably don't, because there are some directions this film goes that not everyone's going to like. The Circle is extremely boring. The only good part is Tom Hanks. Even though the character's not that good, there is a personality to him that I liked. When John Boyega shows up, I was thinking, like, he also has a lot of energy to him. He's a little more interesting character once again. not good. Patton Oswalt also has a personality. Still, character, not good. Emma Watson is extremely dry. Bad, way bad in this movie. She is terrible here. Very boring. Like, I could not stand watching her in this movie. Not just because I hate her as an actress, because I don't. I like her. But in this film, like, she could not be bothered to care. To at least try to care. Especially since she's carrying this film. The only thing I liked that I thought maybe could have served a little better dramatically was the storyline with the parents. One of them played by Bill Paxton. Of course, rest in peace, Bill Paxton, but his character dramatically, I think, could have really affected Emma Watson's life in some way in the film and have this thing, but they didn't really do that much. It was just kind of there, and it just... this movie doesn't really have much to offer. It has a really dated message at this point about the internet. Like, we get it. We're being watched online. Like, ugh. You don't think we don't know this? Yeah, it's really boring. I would not recommend this. There's nothing exciting about it. There's nothing intriguing. It doesn't make you think. It is just terribly pointless. I'd give it a D. The Book of Henry got a bad rap. Not because I liked it, because I watched it and I thought, it's okay. It's a little better than just plain old mediocre. The first half is really good, very well done. Second half, though, when... spoiler alert, if you haven't seen Book of Henry yet, but it flopped, so no one wanted to see it anyways. The main kid, Jaden Lieberhermer, he dies, and he left a notebook of... Hey, Mom, you know that abusive guy next door who abuses his daughter? Yeah, you can kill him. And I sent, like, John Kramer type messages to you. Like that stuff. And that's when it started to lose me a little bit. And I was just thinking, like, come on. I did like how, in the end, though, Naomi Watts doesn't kill him and just the police eventually come after him. Like, that was, like, nice to show, like, you don't have to kill people. Like, some things just kind of work themselves out, I guess. Doesn't really make up for how this kid just kind of magically knew exactly everything his mom was going to say, even if he is a genius. That kind of killed the movie for a bit, but overall a solid C+ for the Book of Henry. I think a lot of people are exaggerating how awful it was, but then again, this is just me, my own personal thoughts. And I thought the first half was good, but as soon as Jaden Lieberherner dies, that's when it kind of dropped off. The Big Sick recently got nominated for Best Original Screenplay, and that's pretty good. I wouldn't say it was my personal pick to get on there, but it's still a really good movie. Took me by surprise. It has a couple comedy, drama kind of faults, like it goes on a little bit too long, and not every joke kind of lands. When they need to get serious, that's when the comedy just drops completely. Which is fine, you know, but it's just kind of fits in with a lot of other comedy dramas. I was really impressed by this movie's story, though. Kumail Nanjiani, excellent job writing and also starring in this film as himself, pretty much. And his wife wrote the script with him, but Zoe Kazan, I think that's her last name, acted out Kumail's wife. She was also very good. Both of them together had wonderful chemistry. Like, very romantic chemistry. Like, they were an actual real couple, which is good since this is basically their true story. I don't know if there are certain things that they exaggerated just for the sake of a film, but this is pretty much the true story, and I really enjoyed how they wrote it. Some of Kumail's comedy friends got a little annoying. Luckily, they aren't a major focus, and the comedy mostly works because it's mostly Kumail. Also, Ray Romano and Holly Hunter are excellent in this film. They're perfect as Emily's parents. Overall, I give this movie an A-. It's not like my favorite film of the year or anything, but it is a film I would recommend. I think it is a very good comedic dramedy film that is very well written and is not really cliched. There are a couple just tropes that have happened in other dramedies before, but it's still a really good movie. A Ghost Story is extremely boring. There are some things I liked. The cinematography, for one, I liked that. There's a couple of moments of visual storytelling that I appreciated. The performances are also good whenever they're talking, and there are certain things when, like, they explore, like, what a ghost can do in this world, that I like to see. For the most part, though, this movie is nothing but following a ghost. I won't spoil much in case you haven't seen it, or if you're interested, but a character does die and is now a guy under a sheet, and it's pretty much just following that for a very long time. and it gets very boring. There's a lot of long takes, especially one where Rooney Mara is eating a pie for like a solid 8 minutes. Goes on way too long. And there is a reason, once the scene is done, you get the point, but when you're watching the scene non-stop, Rooney Mara just eating a pie for 8 minutes while the ghost just stares in the corner, that gets rather tedious, and that's kind of how I felt throughout a lot of this film. And this is for a specific audience, obviously. The audience members that are really gonna like this film are literally encapsulated by like one character that shows up in the film, who's like this hipster at a party who just like talks about like what the film is about, which kind of ruins it. Like, I thought you were trying to be like maybe subtle about like the message, but then you just have this dude spell it out. And like, what's up with that, man? So this isn't awful, but it is rather boring, and it is a film that I would not prefer to watch again. I'd give it a C-. If you think this is your type of movie, then go see it. If you think you're like me, don't. You will hate it. Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. Not as bad as I thought it would be. Still a bad movie, though. But not as bad as I thought. The visual effects are the standout. They're wonderful. They're excellent, in fact. The set design is also very good. The way they build the world, the universe that they live in, it's also really good. It's fascinating. You want to learn more. Like, the film opens up with, like, explaining visually how, like, a bunch of shuttles just kind of came together, and then aliens started to come and just started to form this huge city, and it's great. And they even show, like, the day in the life of an alien species for, like, another 5 minutes after that. Also, I liked exploring the worlds. But then they cut to Dane DeHaan and Cara Delevingne, and they suck so bad that it made me just completely lose any admiration I had for like the first 10 minutes of the movie. Like, Dane DeHaan is doing his Keanu Reeves impression, and Cara Delevingne is slightly better than him, just as far as performance goes, but character-wise, Laureline and Valerian, I don't really see the chemistry between them. I don't see why they like each other so much. I honestly cannot tell. The dialogue between them is not that good even. There's a lot of cheesy moments between them. The action scenes are also kind of just fine. You know, there's a couple moments that I really like Dane DeHaan like running through a bunch of environments, but there's just other moments that are just kind of visually fine, you know? And for a big, like, space epic film that this is, I was really expecting for better characters, a more intriguing film, because the film gets into its mystery plot about, like, 40 minutes in, and then they kind of just loosely follow it. Like, they just start going to other places in order to eventually get back on track with the mystery vibe that they kind of had going for a bit. And I was not a big fan of that. Rihanna plays Bubble. She's the best character in the film, but spoiler alert, she dies like 5 minutes later. Whatever. I'd give Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets a C+. It's not horrible. I was honestly watching the trailers and I was thinking, like, I'm not sure how I'm gonna feel about this movie, and overall I walked out just thinking it was okay. C+, it's not bad. It is bad, but it's just not as bad as I was expecting and not as bad as other films. Good Time was a great film to watch. You thought I was gonna say the pun, didn't you? No. Like, oh, Good Time was a good time. No, screw you if you said that. But yes, I really did enjoy this film. I might be on the minority on this, but one of the directors, the Safdie brothers, who plays Robert Pattinson's brother, I didn't really like him. Performance-wise. Like, he's only in the movie for, like, a couple minutes, and he doesn't say much. Like, a lot of it is just his face, which works, but then whenever he talked, it was just kind of like, Like, he's playing a character with special needs, so I get what he's trying to do, but I listened to, like, an actual interview with, like, the director, and it's like, yeah, you don't sound anything like this, so you're just trying to do a voice that you think sounds like a special needs person's voice, and I didn't like that. Whenever I heard him talk, I just kind of cringed a little bit. That might just be me, though. I think it is just me. I also think that when Robert Pattinson stops by at that one girl's house, it's way too long, and it should have been cut to a certain extent. But I was really riveted by the majority of this film. It basically takes place over like this one night, and Robert Pattinson has to make things right and get his brother out of jail. And I loved Robert Pattinson in this movie. He was incredible. One of the best of 2017, and that's saying a lot considering he used to be Edward from Twilight. He was phenomenal in this film. And there's just so many sequences with him where he's trying to do something clever. He's trying to be smart, but he's actually not really on top of things like you'd expect. Like, there's so many things that go wrong for this guy, but he just kind of has to work with it. It's a very riveting film with a very great score to accompany it. I'd give Good Time an A-. If you haven't seen Good Time, honestly, I'd recommend it. It is a very good film. Great score, great direction, great acting from Robert Pattinson and other small characters that show up, especially one that Robert Pattinson is kind of forced to work with. He was excellent too. Kidnap. There's only one thing that is preventing me from giving this movie a straight up F, and that is the filmmaking when Halle Berry realizes that her son is lost and when she sees that someone has got him. That kind of perfectly captured like the anxiety a parent would feel. Like, there's like a lot of just flashing moments and just like sporadic kind of editing, and I think that works. However, the rest of the film does not work. Halle Berry is not very good in this film. She's very bland, kind of generic. Her character also, there's no real arc for her. Like, we see like she's a normal waitress, but then she has to go on this crazy action adventure. It's like, okay, but like we don't really see her struggling too much. She seems to be like perfectly on their tail like throughout the film. The criminals as well, I thought they were awful. I did not like them whatsoever. The action is poorly filmed also. And it all just kind of builds up to this ending that could have felt really claustrophobic and stressful, but they didn't direct it well. They didn't write it well enough, and it just kind of just felt like you're really frustrated after a while, because like you have this somewhat good premise, and you just blew it because cheap, I guess. This movie's been delayed for a long time, so obviously that was the first sign of trouble. I'd give it a D-. If it weren't for that one scene, I would have given this straight up F. It is an awful film. The Nut Job 2, Nutty by Nature. The first film was on my worst list of 2014. Obviously, I've changed a little bit since then. I don't know if maybe that first film would still be on there because I haven't seen it since then. This movie was a little bit better. The animation at times looked a little more appealing than the first film. It's still pretty bad, but for the most part, there were some things that I thought like, okay, that doesn't look too bad. The character of Andy, played by Katherine Heigl, not terrible in this film. Like, she's kind of the one with like the straight mind instead of like Will Arnett, who's just wants to slack off and, you know, do easy stuff. So her character was a little more tolerable in that sense. And there's also a mole character who had two scenes that genuinely had me chuckling a little bit. So those things kind of really saved me from hating this film like I did the first one. You could say this is an improvement, but this is still an awful film. So nah, not really. This movie did not have me full on laughing. It's not as clever as it thinks it is. Jackie Chan showing up as this mouse wasn't even entertaining, and that I think that should have been. And even like Peter Stormare shows up as like this exterminator. Like, this should be really funny, but it's not. I feel like it should be, though. It's kind of the same as the first film. They even end this film referencing the first film, post-credit scene. That's bad. D+ for The Nut Job 2. Nutty by Nature. Frickin' nut puns. Jesus Christ. The Lego Ninjago movie, another animated film. This movie got like 50% on Rotten Tomatoes or something, and I think it's a little bit better than that. It is not amazing, though. The two live-action scenes with Jackie Chan I did not like. I think a couple moments of humor could have been improved. This movie is very kid-friendly, after all. Lego Movie and Lego Batman are also kid-friendly, but they also have like a thing about them that appeals to adults. And this one is a little bit more aimed towards kids. I still had a good time with this film because it doesn't do anything offensive like The Nut Job did, but it is a film that isn't really going to stick with me as long as the Lego Movie or Lego Batman did, because it is kind of lacking that really powerful theme. There is a good message as far as Lloyd and Garmadon, like their relationship. Like, that was sweet, but I've definitely seen much better with Emmett and Lego Batman. And the rest of the ninja characters besides Lloyd, good character, and Garmadon I loved. He was hysterical. And the Jackie Chan, once he's not live action and he's the Lego piece, like, he's good. But the other character, the other ninjas, A great cast: Abby Jacobson, Michael Pena, Gabe from The Office, Fred Armisen, I think someone else maybe, Kumail Nanjiani. Like, a bunch of great actors, but they don't really have much to their characters, and sure, their voices are pleasant to hear, and they had a couple funny jokes, but for the most part, the characters were lacking in that sense, and they are joined with Lloyd throughout, and I think that should have been improved a little bit. Overall, I'd give it a B-. It is funny, and it has some Lego moments that I liked, especially in the other Lego films. I think this could have been much better, though, and I think this was not a really good thing to have follow up Lego Batman, and especially the first Lego movie. Because this movie, even though it is decent in my eyes, it is kind of what a lot of people feared the first and Lego Batman were going to be. Overall, though, I did enjoy it to a certain extent. Gerald's Game is phenomenal. Thank you, Mike Flanagan, for making another excellent film. I think this movie should have gone to theaters mainly because of one scene near the end, and you know the scene. I was cringing so hard, and I feel like if I saw this in a theater, I would just be like, I would be dead. Like, in case you don't know, I have a lot of sensory issues, and that one scene, I was watching it on my iPad through Netflix, and it's just like, oh my god, what? No, you're still going? No! And I feel like if that was put in theaters and I was forced to actually just go see it, I would have just died in that theater. And I would have loved that to happen, because that just kind of shows how great Mike Flanagan is as a director. Some other directors would probably show that to just kind of be like, ooh, look, I'm so violent, look at all this. Like Nicholas Winding Refn and like the Neon Demon, like showing violence for the sake of violence. That's just for you, dude. But then you have this movie with Mike Flanagan, you get to that scene, and it doesn't feel like violence for the sake of violence. It's just incredibly tension-fueled for the scene and for the betterment of the story and character. And Carla Gugino is excellent, too. Like, I was really rooting for her to get a Best Actress nom at the Oscars, because the things she has to go through here, much more impressive than what Meryl Streep did in The Post and what she's been doing for, like, the past several years. And Bruce Greenwood, with his small role, I really enjoyed him, too. Like, he has a couple back and forths with Carla that are very well done. Very good. And this movie, there's certain shots that scared me. Did not require a dong or any noise or anything. Just a still shot. And I was just like, oh Lord. Like, that's all you need. I will say, though, the ending of the movie, the last 5 minutes or so, something that I thought was imaginary was actually real. That sort of killed it for me just a little bit. Like, I was just thinking, like, I feel like it would have worked a little better as just a thing in her mind. Like, it would have improved, like, a psychological journey. Overall, though, I love this film. I recommend it, absolutely. I give it an A. Mike Flanagan made another great film, and yes, I'm gonna review Before I Wake soon. It's a 2018 release now, it counts. Better Watch Out, I hated. The premise, though, is good. Execution-wise, it sucks. Mainly because the kid from Pan is in this film, and he's acting like a supervillain. Spoilers, he's actually a bad kid. Like, at first, like, they think the house is being, like, robbed or, like, intruded, but then it turns out it was all a ploy just so this kid can, like, tie up his babysitter, and he and his friend can just goof around. But then that friend starts to just not like him later, you know? And the babysitter is from The Visit, and Ed Oxenbould is also there. But it's the main kid, the supervillain kid that I hated. He was so cornily bad. Not like corny funny, just like James Bond villain bad. And he's a kid. Like, stop trying to make kids supervillains, you know? This movie is just very frustrating to watch because he is the lead. And even though I liked Ed Oxenbould and I liked Olivia de Jong, I think that's how you pronounce it, overall, you have this guy leading the film, and he sucks so bad, even before he just turns into supervillain. Like, he's just so bland and boring. And it's like, oh my god, this movie's very unfunny, too. Like, you have a couple jokes in the beginning that were just, like, terrible in every sense of the word, and then it just keeps going with more dark humor, and it gets even worse. I did like the ending to a certain degree, mainly because Olivia de Jong won, so I was like, okay, at least you had that, you didn't just end the film with this kid winning. But at the same time, I feel like I would have loved this movie with some better execution and a better performance from this kid. Geostorm sucked, but I'm sure you already knew that it did. The last, like, 20 minutes or so gets somewhat guilty pleasure level of entertaining, and the space station itself, like, set design-wise, is pretty good. The movie sucks though. It's not really focused much on a disaster with like terrible CGI effects, which the film does have, but it's mostly focused on this boring political thriller that I was not a fan of. Gerard Butler, he was trying, but God, he's just not good here. The guy who plays his brother, I forget who he is, but he was also pretty bad here. This movie, honestly, I think I would have liked on the same level as San Andreas if it was just a bunch of, like, race against time, like, we have to stop all these disasters, but it takes so long for them to actually get to, like, a climax filled with it. There's only, like, one instance, like, near the beginning where they actually start it, and I'm like, oh, this is it, this is where it's gonna get fun, but then it stops, and I was like, oh, so I'd give it a D. Like, it's bad, but it's not like worst film ever or anything. I've seen much worse. But then again, this movie is still pretty boring, and it is one of the worst disaster movies out there. The Snowman is also a movie that sucks, but you already know it. I think there are some good things about it, though. Performance-wise, Rebecca Ferguson, Michael Fassbender, good. The story itself, it definitely has potential, and there are moments where I see it and I'm like, if you had just finished filming the last 15% you didn't finish or anything, this movie, and with better just direction in general, this movie could have turned out really good. Because although the cinematography looks very pretty, there's something wrong with the direction of this film. The story, based off a book that I think people love or something, the screenplay is very dull. It's very boring, and there are some moments where I perked up a little bit, like, ooh, because I'm a fan of mysteries, but the movie does so poorly with its execution that it really killed it for me. I'd give The Snowman a D+. I get a lot of people are saying, like, it's the worst movie ever because it didn't finish filming, and you can tell. And you can tell, but I don't think that's enough to kind of ignore some of the good things the movie has to offer. That being said, though, it is still bad. Jigsaw. The Saw movies, the first one I liked. Second one, I think is decent. The third one, and then the rest just kind of suck for me. This one, we're back to meh, at least for me. The editing isn't as annoying as the other Jigsaw films, so there's that. This movie doesn't make any sense, though, as per usual with these Saw films. Like, what did you really expect at this point? Like, the acting's fine, the acting's pretty fine, I guess. Like, I don't know, man, a C- for Jigsaw. You know what this is. Roman J. Israel Esquire. Denzel just got nominated for this. Maybe it was because they had to get rid of James Franco, or maybe they were gonna nominate him this whole time. This movie's just kind of meh to me. I think overall I could watch it again because of Denzel's performance. His character is very fascinating, and Dan Gilroy did a really good job writing it, and Denzel did a good job performing it. The rest of the story, though, just was really just ungrabbing to me. Like, I was never fully invested with the story. For as good as certain parts were, this movie just kind of felt like it didn't really have a lot of tension or dramatic tension to it. It just kind of felt like I was watching this character, and it was pleasant because Denzel was doing an excellent job, but when certain things started to happen later on in the film, I just felt this thing of like, I feel like you could have built up to this a little better. I feel like there should be more tension behind the filmmaking here. Overall, I give it like a B- though. I think it's a film you can watch. I wouldn't be surprised if some people did not like this, though, because there are certain things that I was disappointed in. And finally, we have Mudbound, which I watched on Netflix, and this was very good. The narration did not need to be there. Like, I think they could have just cut that out, and we could just kind of tell from, like, their facial expressions and stuff. And it's a wee bit too long, but this film is very good, very well directed too by Dee Reese. Also great performances by Jason Mitchell, and I want to say his name is Garrett Hedlund. I think it's Garrett Hedlund. Those two are excellent. Jason Clarke is also really good, Carey Mulligan and Mary J. Blige. The racist dad of Jason Clarke, he was aggravating to watch in the good sense, because that's his character. He's supposed to be aggravating to the audience. He's an unlikable dude. But he did it so well that I was watching this movie and certain things happened where I was legit just mad. I was furious. And that's a really good testament to the director and also just this guy, this actor. I don't know who he is, but he was excellent. And the last 20 minutes of this film, I think, are definitely the best part. Not to talk down about the first hour and a half or so, it's just that the last 20 minutes is definitely when everything is built up to it. So I'd give it a B+. I think it's a very good film, and if you have a Netflix, you can definitely watch it. May not be for everyone. There are certain things that happen that some people might just find hard to watch, but I think it was very well helmed by Dee Reese. And that's it. That's the end of 2017. Oh my god, finally. we're done, folks. No more 2017 videos. Guys, what did you think of these movies I talked about, especially Phantom Thread? Leave in the comments below what you thought of them. Did you like some more than me? Did you hate some more than me? Leave your thoughts, any of them, because 2017, for me, is now over. We can finally move on with some 2018 focused review content. Jesus, it's been so long. But anyways, guys, as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher, and see you guys next time.